Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki.
The struggle, which again, everybody in this business has. It just looks different on different people. But I feel like the being told no is the thing that propels me.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. On this week's episode, we have writer, director, and producer Simbi Hall. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Alan.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. So I always start things off just wanting to get to know who Simbi is. So if you could share kind of a little bit of your background, maybe where you're born and raised. I think I saw online that you were born in Chicago. Is that right?
That's true.
Nice.
That is true. So I was born in Chicago, and I then grew up in Virginia Beach, actually. Mm-hmm. And then I went to school at NYU in New York City. And then I moved out to LA, which is where I met you.
Yes. Nice. Yeah. So you went to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, correct? And you double majored for film as well as dramatic writing?
Yes.
Amazing. What was that process like for you, kind of going to school and being in New York City, and I'm guessing at a young age, and was just kind of going through the whole process of living in New York City?
Well, yes, it was. It's like I'd visited New York a lot as a kid. We would go up in the summers and stuff to visit. And so I felt like I knew the city a little bit, but it's different when you're 17. You know, I got in early. So I went to school early, and then I was the first one they allowed to double major. And wow. I was able to do that because I'd had a plan since junior high school. So I started taking summer school so that by the time I was a senior in high school, almost all my classes were AP. So that then when I got to college, I didn't have to take anything I didn't want to take. So I was like, I don't need to take English in college. I'm American. I speak it. I don't need math. I'm an artist. I can count. Like, I was just like, I don't want to take any of that stuff.
Smart, yeah.
In college. No, because I was like, you know, my mom raised me and was paying for college, you know, as a single mom. And it was like money, like I'm going to this pricey ass school, which I was very happy to go to. Let's put all the money on what I really want to be doing in my life. Right. And so that's what happened.
Amazing. Yes. So kind of like the process of going to school and being in New York and everything. And like you said, you were the first to kind of do this double major. Was it difficult for you going to school and being someone who was kind of leading the way and paving the way for doing kind of both at the same time?
I didn't really think about it. I was really thinking about what I wanted to do. And I knew that, I mean, and the reason I was the first is, like I explained, you have a certain number of credits that you have to take aside from whatever your major is. And Tisch is a really, you know, all the programs inside Tisch are really rigorous. So it just hadn't been, you know, I think this was my one time of like really planning ahead paid off, you know. So I didn't think about it. I just thought about like, what do I want to do coming out of school? And as a person who was coming into this industry with zero contacts, no family connections, no, you know, play uncle or aunt who was going to help get me a job, I was just like, I got to make all of this work. And, yeah, I was able to do that, which is, you know, thanks to Tisch for allowing me. And I started doing internships second year because, again, I was already thinking about when I get out of here, I need to have made some relationships, you know. And so I did internships, and while also being a nanny, because I had to make money to help pay for school and just like have money, because New York is expensive and you want to have all the fun. So you need to, you know, figure it out. And yeah, like I was just driven by the plan, you know. And so it's like, okay, what can I do to make the plan? And that said, even the internships, they don't really want going to people in second year. They really want to save them usually for people who are about to graduate, you know?
Right.
And so I was still just like, I don't need, you know, I don't even know if I started getting credit, but I definitely started doing the process, you know, and just like being a reader at different companies and, which I did a lot of that. And then just the usual kind of like unpaid kind of PA stuff. But I'm mostly focused in development as far as my internships. And then I was at I'm trying to think like what came first. I was at a couple different companies just doing coverage. And then I got into the Tribeca Film Center, and I feel like that was almost like grad school, because then I got to, work between all the production companies that were housed there. And I became a coat check girl. Which is maybe one of the most coveted jobs in New York City. Yeah, coat checking is like...
You have all of everyone's things in this coat check. It's cash. Yeah. I feel like I made more as a coat check girl than I did at my like subsequent job, like real jobs, after college. And they'd feed you. And it was great food. It was the Tribeca Grill. It was just like all good. And you like saw the people and went to all the parties. And so that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for me. That's amazing. And what made you kind of decide to leave the East Coast and come out to Los Angeles?
Well, even though New York is New York, I felt like the industry is really here. I had no intention of staying here this long. I thought I'd be here for like 2 or 3 years. And it has been like 5 times that now. Why did I move here? That's the deep question. So no, I think I just felt like it was time for a change, and I got hired to work on the MTV Movie Awards and the Academy Awards. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And they were like back to back that year. Wow. And then I stayed, and I had a few friends here, and they, everybody's like, the weather's so great. This is how they get you. East Coast people, don't be fooled. It is great. It's like, that's the major selling point. Yeah. And when it's cold and you're like walking from the subway, you're like, I think maybe I should go. And so I did it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's been fun. I don't have regrets, but
yeah. And you came out here on your own, just kind of not on a whim, but like with the determination to just kind of make it in the industry. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. Wow. And then from kind of the school and the internships and the work that you were doing, is that how you kind of made the connections when you came out here? Or were you just kind of like, I'm going out there and I'm going to just do everything I can to make it happen in LA?
A combination. So I had come to visit maybe twice before. I'm going to say twice. I come to visit twice. So I had some idea of the lay of the land. The second time I came, which was, I guess, the longer trip, I had a couple generals, just like general meetings with people. No jobs came from those, but it still gave me the feeling of like, oh, this is what people do. These are the opportunities here. And then I got hired. So I felt really lucky because I was coming with, it wasn't, these weren't full-time jobs, but at least I felt like I had a job for maybe the first 5 months. Is that true? Maybe 5 or 6 months. Right. I knew I was going to be working. And then it was like, let's see, who knows what'll happen. So it was definitely scary. But, a friend of mine said recently that artists she believes, there's no scientific proof to this, but it makes sense to me. She's like, artists have a different kind of central nervous system because we must be able to deal with the constant ups and downs. I don't think I've ever had a job for more than 2 years max. Wow. That was just like a go to work, here's your paycheck thing. Yeah. And so, it's always been like, let's see. Yeah. And so I think you do have to have a different kind of, and I think the desire fuels that because it's not something that you just do to me. Like you don't just do that on a whim. Right. But I also felt like, what else would I do? Like this is very much like my mission. And I feel I have a particular voice and viewpoint that I was put here to share. And this is the way I'm going to do it in this life. And let's go, Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's a great transition because, the podcast really
for me came out of, 2020, obviously with the pandemic and everything. But to your point of, I feel like as creatives, so many of us don't hold down a 9-to-5 job, right? And it is paycheck to paycheck or gig to gig. And you're kind of this freelancer at all times, right? And it affords you so many amazing things, right? Because you're able to do whatever you want in those off times, but then also, work really hard when you're on a project. But, the struggles that we kind of go through of kind of this ebb and flow, if you will, I'm just curious kind of what maybe were, if you can share some of the struggles that you've gone through, but that you feel like ultimately kind of fueled you to be able to stay afloat and stay creative and kind of keep moving forward.
Well, I'll start with the thing that I think everybody can relate to is the financial part. And so I feel like having overcome not having money at different times, like you then are compassionate towards other people who might be in that situation for whatever reason, right? And then also for me, I feel like it's given me a sense of resilience as well as, of course, appreciation for when things are okay, and also seeing that I'm always okay.
Yes.
Right? I'm always protected. I'm always okay. So that part doesn't actually dictate things. And so that's something that I feel like is sort of like across the board for people. And so I don't want to have any more of that in my life, that instability, but I'm not asking for more of that. But I do feel like, okay, I've developed some kind of inner strength, because of it and determination. The other thing is a little more specific. I feel like it is just now becoming good to be me in this business as far as, a Black woman.
Right.
And it's still a struggle. It's a struggle for everybody, regardless of gender or race or anything. Right. But it was definitely, harder before. Yeah. And so I'm thinking of a particular incident, which I don't know if I've ever told you this experience, but this was years ago. This was years ago, but way before 2020, which I know we're going to talk about. And I had this project that I was really excited about, and friends got it to this actress, I won't say who, but who was just like on the cusp. Like she was about to have a franchise,
Wow.
or be part, it wasn't hers, about to be part of a franchise.
Right.
And we were at the same agency at the time. And I was quite naive and thought, oh, she's a woman of color. Her agent at the time was a woman of color. We're at the same agency, like that there should be some internal synergy of support happening. Right. And my agent had said she was going to get the project to this person, and it wasn't happening. And then it ended up that this actress and I had friends in common, 2 different friends. And they had both read it, and they were like, this is so perfect for her. Like, I'm going to give it to her. And I was just like, no, I didn't want to use the friend thing. Because I'd also been told that agents really don't like that. They don't want people coming in sideways. And so I was trying to like follow the rules. And then the friends gave it to her anyway, which was great. She loved it. We ended up meeting up and totally hitting off and becoming friends. She's like, I want to do this. And I had met with her agent.
Oh, too. Wow. Yeah.
Like the proper way, like before the friends gave it to her. Thinking I'm doing the proper thing to get the agent support. Anyway, got her attached, and my agent, and I'm so excited. I'm like, step 1, like, like now we're going to be able to like get funding. Check. Yes. The checklist is happening. Yes. And I thought, and the project, like the script had like won awards. Like it was good. It wasn't just whatever. And, I will never forget my agent calling me after I gleefully shared this news. And she says to me, Simbi, don't you understand that Black women have no value?
Excuse me?
And so what she meant was getting a Black woman attached to my project was not going to be what was going to bring investors to the project because they have no value.
Wow.
And Alan, I remember where I was. I remember how it felt. And the thing is too, this was not a woman saying this to me, out of spite or
right.
any, she was saying it like, why don't you understand this? Meanwhile, she was, Jewish and a lesbian. So somebody who like understood the struggle
right.
of some,
Yeah.
So again, like wasn't saying this maliciously, but was saying it like, why don't you get this? Well, I'm gonna have to explain it to you. And that was even worse than if somebody was just saying it from a place of racism
right.
or
right.
bias,
right.
I just had to go lay down for a day. And I was just like, I have to just lay down.
Yeah.
I can't. And then when I got up, I realized I was like, oh, and this is where like my Buddhism comes into play. I was like, oh, this is a benefit because that lady just helped me crystallize my mission in this industry.
Wow. Yeah.
Because just saying something that blatantly, has a statement of fact and how people thought and talked.
Right.
And that was not that long ago. So like to now see it shift is really encouraging, but it's like, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's incredible. I think that those are the stories that people don't hear, right? You just see so much of kind of the glitz and the glam of Hollywood. And I'm sure you've seen it all because like you said, you've worked, the red carpets of the Oscars and doing MTV awards. And you've, worked on almost every network that there is on television, doing production and everything. And so, just hearing that from someone who has power, right, in this industry as an agent and someone who can greenlight and support, artists being able to do things is kind of disheartening. But also, like you said, instead of just taking that as like it's over, and crumbling, you're like, no, this is actually like gives me the drive and the purpose to show that we're going to change this. We're not going to just stand by, and take it. So, what do you consider to be kind of your greatest personal achievement? And it may not be something that you're necessarily like known for or like outwardly, but if you feel like there's something that you've personally achieved in your career or life that you are like so proud of.
I mean, I'm proud of different things in my career, but I feel like as a personal achievement, I think it's being somebody who's well trusted.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that quality that I have will span or does span into my professional life. Because ultimately, if somebody's going to back your show or back your TV, like, your show or your film, they have trust in you
right.
in delivering in, whatever. You're not going to waste their time or their money. Mm-hmm. But why I'm saying that that's something that I'm proud of is because people who know me really well know this, but I've helped 3 people give birth.
Wow.
And I've performed 5 weddings. And neither of those are my job. And so I got paid for none of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it speaks to people wanting me around and wanting my support at really like the most important and crucial, moments in their life. And so I feel like that speaks to trust. And I actually think, even though they're very, very different, I think in a way it's like my producer abilities.
Yeah.
Of and especially like the live TV part of the producer abilities of just being like, here's what's happening, here's what we got to do. Here's the team to make it happen. How do we manage, navigate, and make sure it all works and it all goes smoothly,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think, having that production hat, and this kind of actually jumps around in my questions, but, what is it like being a producer, and like you said, having to wear all these different hats and kind of multitasking, and what do you consider to be your work ethic like, or even just sharing kind of like, what is the day in the life like for Simbi Hall at this moment?
Okay. Well, the day in the life of Simbi Hall at this moment in 2022 is hilarious because it's like one minute I'm doing a podcast, another I'm writing. I spent a lot of time on Zoom, as we all do now, but I've started, collaborating with other people, which was something I wasn't really doing before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And every day is a little bit different, which suits me. Like I have a personal schedule of what I do when I wake up and like how I start my day and how I end my day.
Yeah.
But every day is different, which, suits my Gemini nature. And then with what's it like producing, I like and I do well with change. And I can find, also it goes back to like what I was saying about like my plan from junior high school on. Even though I do well with change and can pivot in a hot minute, and that's what you have to be able to do, I think, producing anything, but especially if it's live, because who the hell knows what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But I also think that comes, that flow, right, comes from doing all the prep work you can. So I like to prepare and then just see what happens. Because if you're, again, Wayne, who, the great legendary jazz, artist and composer, Wayne Shorter, always says, how can you prepare for the unknown? But it's like, I think how you do that is like, we know it's like life condition. It's like, what state of life are you in?
Yeah.
Are you flexible? Can you be open to the unknown?
Yeah.
And if you're open to receive and you're flexible and you've done your, whatever practice you need to do to kind of get your life up here, then you can be ready to enjoy and like surf,
Yeah.
So, it's preparation and being open, and it goes back, it's like the Girl Scout motto, always be prepared.
Yes, absolutely. Be prepared for the unexpected. Yeah. So you already mentioned the fact that you're Buddhist, which is actually how obviously we met. But I'm just curious, in Buddhism, we talk about the renge or the lotus flower, right? And the simultaneity of both cause and effect in Buddhism, but also the lotus flower like blossoms as well as kind of seeds at the same time, but it's not through, the muck or the, for lack of a better term, excuse my language, the shit underneath the water that actually like propels, this flower to kind of bloom. And so I kind of love to ask guests, what do you consider to be, like the shit or the struggle underneath that has actually given rise to this beautiful flower of your career that you have?
Thank you for describing it as a beautiful flower. And I feel like it's the struggle, which again, everybody in this business has. It just looks different on different people.
Right.
But I feel like the being told no is the thing that propels me.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not asking for more no's. I like some clear open doorways, but I think, it's like back to that statement of proving the opposite of somebody saying Black women have no value. Me like, oh, no, that is completely not true. And let me show you why. Yeah. We have value and are actually the most valuable.
Yeah.
It all started with us. So how about that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
The thing that I love about the analogy of the lotus flower is that the muck is the fuel, and then that feeds the flower. Like the flower wouldn't actually grow without the muck. But then what I really, really love is that then the water around the flower, around the muck, is purified. So to me, there's this really beautiful synergy that allows us to appreciate the obstacles. So rather than thinking like, oh, if I can just get through this shit, I'll be okay. Yes, you're going to bloom and you're okay now, you know, and you're going to not only you be okay, but you're going to purify or help, encourage, whatever word you want to say, everybody in your environment. And so that to me is the importance of not giving up, because when you don't give up, then you are making that cause for, everybody else in the water. And you becoming that flower is showing the other people who are like, paddling through the muck, like you can do it too, So, and then that's actually how we, transform society. So
Incredible.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So well said. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm curious, kind of where do you get inspiration for your writing and your directing kind of projects that you're working on?
I get inspiration from my life, which I feel like is, what everybody does. Mm-hmm. But I really do feel like everything that I experience, the good and the not, which you maybe would like to have, mm-hmm. Are material. Mm. And even when something very specific is happening to me, I feel like I can always see how it can encourage other people, or at least, bring insights to something that people maybe don't talk about so much.
Right.
But, so I definitely get inspiration from my life. And I feel like that's what most people do, And then, of course, I'm always reading different things. I'm a little bit of a science nerd. So even though I haven't written very much that's like deep science, like that will also inform me, because I'm very curious about, like how our brains work, how our bodies work, how, how our perception works, mm-hmm. Based on how we're wired. So I read a lot.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that. So I'm curious I'm also a Gemini, so yay, go Geminis. I'm curious how do you handle what you perceive to be your greatest weakness, and how are you able to work through that when you recognize it happening in whatever part of your life that you're currently in at that moment? Impatience
is definitely my greatest weakness.
Yes.
You know me.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, impatience, which again goes to the gym and are like fast. Yes. That's my greatest weakness. And one weakness that I now see even more as a strength than a weakness, mm-hmm. but is being critical. Mm. So it's, I'm critical, but not in a, not in like a mean way, mm-hmm. but of myself too. So what I feel like started out as a real weakness because it was perfectionism, which there's no such thing, and that will just actually stop your creativity, has now become, the ability to see the thing that needs transforming and be determined to transform it.
Yeah.
And the impatience is definitely, I have had many personal challenges that have forced me to become, I think I should, like the level of patience that would rival a saint on certain things. Yes. So it's like, okay, I'm learning that lesson for sure this lifetime.
Nice. Yeah. No patience. I mean, my mom would always tell me, and she'd probably tell me now, she's like, Alan, patience is a virtue. And I'm like, a virtue I ain't got. It's kind of like, okay.
It's a virtue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my mom tells this story about how, so when I was little in Chicago, she could see out the window. We lived right near Lakeshore Drive, and my Nana would walk me every day, mm-hmm. like in a stroller, and then walk me holding my hand. But when I was a baby in a stroller, mm-hmm. she said Nana would stop and be like looking in a window, and I would, I'm in the stroller, I'm a baby. And then she was like, after a moment or two, I'd start like doing this to like, okay, let's go. Let's keep moving. So it's like, that was inborn.
Yeah.
It's not like, it came honestly. It's just my energy.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love it. Yeah. But I think
it's had to be, changed. Tempered.
There we go.
It's had to be tempered.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you feel like you've had a moment where you've quote unquote like made it, or really a great highlight of your career thus far?
Well, they're different tiers mm-hmm. of making it.
Yeah.
I would say rather than I think I started off in my career as the idea of making it is, you know, having a certain level of, not so much fame, because people behind the scenes don't really necessarily, sometimes they do, like that's not been the goal, but like making a certain amount of money or having whatever level of project go. And so for me, and I think it's common in this industry, instead of it being like 0 to 60 in a jump, which is what, you know, the fantasy is, it's more of, oh, I finally got like, you know, reps who really get me and are putting me out for things that, you know, resonate with me. That's like one level. Then there's like actually like being, first of all, being paid so that you're a professional, you know, that's another level. Then, you know, for me, you know, getting into the guild, like that's another level. That was a pinnacle, because they actually do, you know, a ceremony, and it's like you're in the club. Yeah. And I remember when I was, you know, inducted, they said that, and I got into the Writers Guild for screenplays, which you can get in different ways, but most of the time now it's TV and even new media, right? And so I remember, like, when I got inducted, they said, you know, getting into the Writers Guild, and I'm going to mess up the stats, but it was like they gave one example of like, you know, it's as rare to, it's like being like getting in period. It's like being, you know, drafted for the NBA, right? So that's one thing. And it's like, that's okay. Wow. And they're like, and then getting in for screenwriting, just your features, not TV, is like becoming an astronaut.
Wow. Wow.
It's like, okay. So I'm in, I made it, you know? And so that feels like a big deal. And then, you know, you get deals. And I think every time you get a deal, and I want to maintain this vision, this hopeful vision. Every time you get a deal, like, you're like, yes, like we're making this. And then things happen and somebody falls out, or the money goes away, or the whatever. But it's like, rather than seeing that as a failure, because there are all of these things that are beyond your control, it's like, no, but I still got that deal, or I still sold that script, or I still got that whatever. It's like, just like keeping the momentum going and thinking, okay, 5 years ago, where was I? 10 years ago, where was I? Like, you know, and just like continuing to climb the mountain. Yeah. And I don't think, for me, the way I am, I don't think I'm ever going to get to some pinnacle and just be like, I made it. Because then you hear about people, you know, like that story. I mean, this was years ago, but I always still think about it when you hear these stories of people who have made it and been in the mix of making it for decades. And then you hear that somebody like, you know, Clint Eastwood, you know, it took a decade to make what, you know, $1 Million Baby or whatever movie. Or I think it might have even been more than that. Or, you know, it took forever to Martin Scorsese to make, the Irishman, you know. Whatever it is, you're like, wait, what? Yeah. And it took that guy that long. Right. Then okay. Right. Then this is the process, you know? Yeah. And you just have to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes relative. When you see and hear those stories, you go, oh, okay, so it's not just me, right? Which is why I love talking on these podcasts and telling people stories or having them share their stories, is because, you know, I think too often we get in our own bubble, right? And we just kind of think, oh, this is just me, right? But hearing other people talk about this and realize that, like, oh shit, like you're going through the same problems as I'm going through, or that person had 10 times more difficulties, but was still able to make the project happen, right? Not giving up. And so I think, yeah, that's really so encouraging to kind of hear that. And yeah, kind of not just getting to a pinnacle and being like, okay, I'm good, I'm set. I think yesterday I was talking with another creative, and, you know, we were talking about how, like, it's like you win the Oscar, right? And how it actually can be so detrimental, because it's kind of like you've reached this quote unquote, you know, industry pinnacle, but then you're now at that, your title is now Academy Award winner, so-and-so. And it's like, you better bring that kind of project, right? You have to bring that type of acting, writing, producing, whatever it may be for the work that you're doing. Kind of, I'm curious, just kind of history wise, like, what do you consider that brings you the most happiness when you first started out and, you know, got into this industry in Los Angeles? And what brings you the most happiness or joy now, you know, having been in your career and going through this whole process for a while now?
Oh my, I think it might be the same thing. It's just the actual creating. And it's the thing that is it's a love-hate. I think most writers, I primarily think of myself as a writer. I do all of it. And as I'm writing, I'm envisioning, the directing, and then there's the producer hat of like, how are we going to actually get this done? So all of it's happening, but just focusing on the writing part, I love when I get in that zone where I fully know and understand the characters and can't wait to see what they're going to do next. Yeah. When I'm in that place, which isn't always immediate. And so that's the hate part, where you're just like, I want, you have it in your head, the story to a degree, but then it's just like sitting down to write it. So there's that initial, reluctance, which again, I think that's the perfectionism of like, am I really going to be able to communicate this fully? And then like overcoming that internal hurdle and just sitting down and doing the work. And then you like get in, then you're in it.
Right.
And then that's so much fun when you can just be in it,
I'm curious, can you share kind of a story of what is like one of the craziest things that you've seen while working as like a live TV producer on one of the award shows or any of the kind of red carpet TV pieces that you've done?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of something that isn't too convoluted and like inside. Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix was being interviewed. I think this was for the Emmys.
Okay.
No, that wouldn't have made sense. It would have been for the Oscars because I don't remember what he would have been at the Emmys for. It was at the Oscars.
Okay.
And he was being interviewed, and it wasn't us. Like I saw this. Like he was coming to our stage, because you know how it works. It's like everybody has slots, and you're
Yeah.
And somebody asked him something, and he just threw himself backwards off the stage.
What? Like, as if like diving into a crowd of people? Like, what the hell?
But backwards.
Oh my God.
Like that. And it was just like...
On live television. Yeah.
Well, it's like, what's happening?
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's all of the behind the scenes shenanigans that, people don't see of, and I won't say who did this because this is unflattering, but it's a very big star, because, wasn't nominated for anything, but she's one of those, singer actresses. That's the only hint I'll give.
Okay.
And so on the car, like, because I would work for the main show for the Academy, so the official red carpet show.
Yeah.
And so you have multiple stages throughout the carpet.
Yeah.
It's not just like one stage. Like I would be on the main stage, which would usually be at the turn. If you're walking down the carpet, you get to a large part and then you go in. Like I'd be there. But there'd be, 2 stages before you get to that main stage. And when the interviews are agreed to, it's agreed that like so-and-so is going to be interviewed by whatever Academy host at this stage. Yeah. And there's a time, and it's very precise, And she did her interview and then, continued doing whoever else's interviews along the way, and then saw the main stage. Now, this was not this lady's first time at the Academy Awards.
Yes.
This was not her first rodeo. And she sees, oh, well, that's a much bigger stage. No. And insisted on another interview.
On live television, mind you.
On live television. And so what's funny is, because also when you're working on the show, like you are trying to stay out of the shots of your own show. Right. But of course, because everybody in the world is shooting it all the time, it's like you're on camera, even as a behind the scenes person, you're on camera for E or whoever else, for every other show. And so, my mom and some of her friends were watching, and And they could see me like they had a couple things going. They could see me on another show
network,
telling this person now. And they know me well, so they could tell just from my body language and my head shaking, because I'm sure I was like, no, you get that.
You gotta go.
This is not happening.
Get down,
You gotta go.
Wow.
Stop standing here. It's awkward. Please leave, and in a nice way, you know, because you want to be gracious and whatever. Because at the end of the day, somebody's just trying to do your show, but it's like, no, like what? But I was just like, wow. And the interview had been live.
Right.
It wasn't even because the other thing people don't know, it wasn't pre-taped where you can say, all right, scrap that and use this, but it was. I was kind of surprised at that.
Yeah.
I have to say.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, it was bonkers.
Yeah, I would have never known that there was like, is it an agreement, I'm guessing, between like their publicists and then obviously the networks to like do these interviews, and they're going to talk for X amount of time and then kind of move on. But yeah, that's nuts. It is crazy. I mean, that's like, the Oscars is the Oscars. It's the biggest, TV red carpet and also advertising and everything. That's like, it's huge. It's the Super Bowl of, the entertainment industry, if you will. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And well, let me ask you this then: are a lot of these people like intoxicated? These actors and people that are there, like, are there a lot of people acting a fool, whether they're inside or they're on the red carpet? I mean, because to fall backwards off of a platform or go and try and do 2 interviews on the same red carpet, that just seems like it's cuckoo. Like, are these people not coherent, or is it just kind of like
sometimes they're not coherent. And then you think about whether it's, and I'm not saying that. I don't think that lady was on drugs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But, or you could say, is she on the drug of fame? Which is probably what she was on.
Yeah.
And then I definitely don't want to speculate about what would, drive Joaquin Phoenix to just fall backwards from the stage. Probably not just the drug of fame. We'll just say that. Yeah. probably other things. But what's interesting is that there was another actress who I won't say, but she was known to take a lot of beta blockers to kind of like flatline herself before doing it. And I was like, that's interesting, because you would think of people like being tipsy or drunk or taking something that's like an upper. You wouldn't, I never thought, I don't take drugs, so I don't think about them a lot, but it's like to think about somebody taking, I mean, again, I guess you think of people taking, anti-anxiety meds or something, but just like for regular life, not so much somebody taking a heart medicine, a beta blocker to prep for a red carpet. I'm like, well, that's interesting. And already she's a person who's already kind of flatlined. So you're like, you are now removing any personality you might actually have by adding beta blockers. Yeah. But that's my opinion on her. But anyway.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. All these like inside stories are always so interesting to me. And I'm sure, the audience listening as well as watching will definitely enjoy that. What's one thing that you've learned about yourself working in this industry that you may not have recognized prior to kind of getting into Hollywood and doing everything that you do?
That's a hard one, because I feel like the obvious answer is from being close to celebrity in like professional life and in personal life, not my own, because I don't have any celebrity, but like friends. But is that people are people. It just seems really like obvious to say that, but it's true. And but saying that, I don't know that I thought they weren't. So I don't really know if that's some big revelation for myself. Is realizing that I'm always the same.
How so?
Because there's some people, just even the example on the red carpet. It's like there's some people who would have said one thing to her, right, and then talk about it another way.
Yes.
Whereas I'm just the same. And so I said no to her the way I would say no to anybody else doing a similar type thing,
Right.
whatever that might be,
Yeah.
you know? And so, yeah, I've realized that. Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, I'm just thinking about this, like it comes back to the trust thing, because it isn't even about, I think that I don't do things. I've learned, I don't have I don't have a lot of people pleaser in me. And I think that that's actually a good thing in this industry.
Right.
Because people do try to take advantage. And if you have too much of that, I have a little of that because I'm a human and I want to be a good person, you know, but I don't, not to the like detriment of myself. And I think that, again, it comes back to the trust, because somebody can not like me or not agree, but I've definitely seen that when people recognize authenticity, like it, whether they like it or not, or agree or not, they respect it and they can trust it. Because it's like, oh, Simbi's going to tell me the truth.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether they're famous or not, and actually, if the more famous someone is, the more I found they actually want people around who are authentic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's so many fake people around in Hollywood. And they kind of, you know, people please. These celebrities are people that are famous. Yeah. So it makes sense. How do you have such like conviction and courage when it comes to that? Because from what you've shared, you don't have this, you don't seem to care necessarily what people think of you, as you just kind of shared. So I'm just wondering, where does that kind of come from? Is it just who you are, or were you raised a certain way from your mom, or yeah?
I think it sounds so terrible coming back. Like, I don't care if people, you know, but I think that, yeah, I think some of it's just innate. And I think that, actually, I read something the other day. What was I reading? Anyway, the thing that resonated that I think relates to this is about how people, you know, it's very human to want to fit in. But actually, when people like dull who they are to fit in, they don't fit in because they're trying to be like the herd or like the group, and that you actually fit in when you're totally yourself. And so there's a part of me that feels like it's one of my gifts that I never felt like I fit in. So I didn't try.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like where I grew up, like I was often the only Black kid, you know, in different classes, I was the only girl. You know, younger, I was the only one who was being raised by a mom and a grandmother. I didn't have any friends who had that experience.
Yeah.
That's very common, but I wasn't around those people. So around me, it's like people mostly had a mother and a father. And it's like my father was like pretty much non-existent for me. And so, again, common, but not in my circle, right? And so I didn't fit in most of the basic ways. And then later, as far as like career aspirations, I didn't fit in. None of my friends that I grew up with were going to do anything in entertainment or going to really even leave Virginia, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't have any, and I had and have, I'm still friends with those people, some of those people, and some people from college and throughout, you know, but I didn't, talking about the formative years, I didn't have anybody who was like me, you know, and yet I had a very eclectic group of friends where everybody was allowed to just be how they were,
Right.
you know? So, yeah, I would say, yeah, I think it's some of it's innate and some of it was it was like, it's always the nature versus nurture, And then speaking about my mom and my Nana, they didn't raise me to fit in.
Right.
So I wasn't being, asked to be like somebody else. And again, being an only child, it wasn't like there wasn't any other kid in the family to compare me to. Be like, be more like your whatever. It's like, I was it. I was it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No.
And now I'm so thankful for that, for not fitting in.
No, I think, and I hope it did not come off too harshly. I think I am so...
No.
I'm so actually encouraged by that, because I do think that too often, creatives and people, who have different backgrounds and are so uniquely themselves, still, like you said, try to fit in. And so to hear you be so proud and also known for that, and people being able to come to you and trust that, they're going to get your honest opinion, and that you're not going to kind of cower to, oh, but they might think of me if I say this, right? It's just kind of like, I'm going to deliver this, is kind of, it's refreshing, especially in this industry that is full of a bunch of ding dongs who, are just kind of trying to climb their way up the ladder, saying whatever they need to say type thing. So yes.
Yeah. And I would also add to that and say, as much as like, there's just what I already said, my innate thing, and then how I was raised, there's also the Buddhist aspect, which is really trying to be really present with people in the moment, and having the realization, like even before, I mean, my mom was a Buddhist, right? So it's been in my life, but my Nana would always say, I remember this from being like a little child, she would say, tomorrow isn't promised. And so I always grew up with this understanding that we can die at any moment, which is not in a,
morbid way,
in a depressive or morbid way, but just like seize it today. And so when you're having, if I'm having an interaction with somebody, I want it to be the most beneficial and authentic interaction it can be. And so even if it's somebody who's not close to you, like even if I'm, in the checkout counter at Trader Joe's, it's like, how can I engage with this person in a real way? So then of course, then the more important the relationship is, or the closer it is, like then even more authentic and like really connected do I want to be in those exchanges. And so I feel like if I'm worrying about how they are, and my first concern is myself, meaning what am I saying that's going to make them do a certain thing? That for me feels like a manipulation, and means I'm not actually just being present and saying what's authentically coming out, So.
Absolutely.
And if you just say what people want you to say, you're not helping them.
Right. Yeah. It takes two to have a dialogue, and you hope that you're creating value out of that dialogue. Yeah. That it's not just,
Yeah. And that's giving them permission also to say to me what they really want to say. It's real. It's like, that's real intimacy. It's not bullshit. I don't want bullshit relationships. Life is too short, whether life is too short or too long, because who wants me in a long bullshit relationship either? So I have no time for either of those scenarios.
Yes. Keeping it real with Simbi. I love it. I'm curious, who is your number one supporter or biggest fan in your career, and who has kind of kept you going and supported you all the way?
Oh, that's my mom. 100%. Because again, a single, mom who did not balk at the idea of me going to art school, and who actually was one who found it.
Wow.
Who was just like, she was the one who was like up, researching, and came to me and was like, you should apply here. And I was like, what? So it's like even wilder. Like, she's fully believed in me, And, you know, I don't know that she thought, or she would say that she was like, I thought it would be faster, but it's like, has been with me the whole time. Complete supporter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel really lucky to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mom is so lovely and so encouraging as well. So amazing relationship you guys have. Like you said earlier, we're going to talk about this, but you know, COVID obviously affected all of us in many different ways. So I'm curious kind of how did you get through COVID? And now that we're in 2022, you know, how do you kind of keep moving forward throughout this pandemic?
I feel like I had a really interesting reaction to COVID. I mean, terror like everybody, you know, but because I was actually supposed to go to Japan in early 2020, I was paying attention to it earlier than was being reported here. So I didn't think it was going to be what it was going to be, but I was looking at it like, are we going to get to go or not?
Yeah.
You know? And then it was like clearly like, oh no, not only are we not going, ain't nobody going nowhere no time soon. You know? And so we were, you know, my mom and I were on lockdown before people were saying lockdown. I will never forget going into Whole Foods, you know, like March 8th, like I think lockdown happened around
March 20th.
March 15th. It was like the Ides of March, like, you know, but we were on lockdown, I'm going to say March 8th or 9th. So, you know, not quite, but almost 2 weeks before. And I remember going into Whole Foods and Trader Joe's looking like a crazy person in a mask that my mom had like used for painting.
Oh my gosh.
And dishwashing gloves.
I die.
And a hoodie and had it on. And I don't wear hoodie, like hoodie. Because I was just like, how do I cover all the skin? And it was warm here in LA in March. I'm like, I got to cover all the skin.
Wow.
Glass, like big sunglasses and a mask, which again, like even now it's like odd, but we're used to it. But like early March 2020.
That's not normal.
And somebody like saw me and like hugged their child like and I was like, guilty.
Oh my God, this is so good.
You'll see. Like I was like,
I'm ahead of the curve, damn it.
You know, but again, I didn't care. I was like, I am not bringing back whatever this is or isn't into my house. Like, I was just not. I didn't care. Again, didn't care. Laugh, say whatever you want. See you later. You know. So, but then after it was, you know, after lockdown, you know, was official. I was. I also feel like writers were built for this. Like, we like staying in the house. Like, I'm a very social person and love going out, you know, but I also can be very happy inside. Like, there's a lot going on up here that will keep me entertained, you know, and busy. And so the beginning, like, what was I working on? I just gotten hired to write a script. I was doing an adaptation. So I felt like, okay, I've got work, you know, there's going to be some money coming in, or I'd probably been paid commitments. So I felt like, I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of okay. I'd done the Academy Awards that year and then, had like just, you know, finished that really. And then I ended up working more. Like there was just a lot of like, I got hired to do some stuff, but I also just started like collaborating with people. And so I ended up, you know, because of Zoom, like people that you just met because of Zoom. And so I ended up like being super busy, which was great because it was a distraction. And I also was that person who, you know, decided like, this is the moment to finally Marie Kondo the house. Like,
all of us.
I am cleaning
everything.
Every drawer. I mean, you know, but some people didn't do that. I was like, well, isn't this what everybody's doing? And it was like, no, it's not. They were baking bread. I baked no bread.
There you go.
You know, I had baked bread before. I love baking bread, but I was just like, no bread has been baked in this whole pandemic. Have things been organized? Yes. You know, so that was sort of my coping thing, which, you know, if you break it down, it's like there's no control out there, but damn it if my closet won't be color coded. Like, damn it if I won't, you know, finally clean out that whatever drawer, you know. So there's definitely a lot of that. Yeah. And so I feel really fortunate. Like, we didn't get it. You know, I didn't get it until a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Like, you know, so.
Are you doing?
Because I was gloving up and masking up and doing all the things, you know. And so, so I joke that I went to the Sequoias, which I've been wanting to go to. And the day after, we were there for a few days. And then the day after I came back, I woke up with 101.56 fever. And I'm like, this is why Black people need to stay out of the woods.
I am done. I cannot. I've been to New York, I've been to Nantucket, I've been to DC, I've been places. I go to the woods. I live in LA. I mean, I go to the woods and I come back with it. I was like, absolutely not.
Okay, fine.
That is hysterical. Well, I'm glad. It sounds like you're okay and you were able to kind of, you know, get out of the woods.
It's a super booster. I'm taking it as a super
Go.
booster. Like, that's it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, kind of looking to the future, you know, what are some goals that you have set for yourself for like the next 3 to 5 years or even 10 years from now in all of your creative endeavors?
The goals are, you know, they're big goals. So it's like, it's like a goal / prayer / determination is to bring all of my projects to fruition, you know, with the best teams and to their audiences worldwide. And for there to be, you know, tremendous critical acclaim and financial success for everyone involved. To keep working with the best teams. People that I enjoy and love and respect. And, you know, so that's like, and then of course it's like, we all want, you know, awards bring, it isn't so much for the thing of the award, because it's also, I mean, back to the question you asked before about how do you know you've made it? Like, I think sometimes you feel like awards mean you've made it, but as you said, it can be a double-edged sword. I still would like all my Oscars in various, you know, disciplines. So I'm waiting for them. No, I would like all of that. If only because they're milestones and not to let the idea that like some external thing is validating, but it's just acknowledging, you know, and hopefully having recognition in that way helps whatever message, you know, you're putting out there. Like, I'm a believer, you know, like my motto for my company and for my career is enlightenment through entertainment. Because I feel like more than any political, you know, action or system that you can take, what changes people, and this is actually, I didn't say this earlier, but I was going to be a speechwriter. Like, since I was in elementary school, which I think is also just hilarious that an elementary school kid was like, I'm going to be a speechwriter. Like, what? Like it was very specific. But I was thinking that all the way through junior high school. And then I feel like I realized that politics doesn't actually change people. It's art changes people. Story changes people. Story is like the number one thing. Like, we spend, I mean, there's a famous quote, I forget who said it, but it's like our brain stays up all night telling us stories. Like, that is how primal storytelling is and how necessary it is for our life and evolution. So to me, to be able to be a storyteller, I feel like is why I'm here. With goals, it's like to continue being able to do that. And then, you know, personally, it's, you know, to have my babies and, you know, get married and have a bigger house, all of those kinds of things, you know, continued good health, you know, all of, I feel like the usual kinds of things, but yeah. Those are the goals. Yeah. And to balance it all, to live like a really happy, joyful, balanced life with all of that.
Lovely. So I always ask this question to every guest. If you could talk or send a message to your future self in 15 years from now, what would you say to your future self?
Congratulations. You did it. You got it. You did it.
I love that. Simple. To the point.
Thank you. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah.
Lovely. And then I think you kind of already said this, but maybe you can elaborate on it. But like, what is one life motto or phrase that you really live by?
Oh, you know this one. Never give up. Yeah, I fully believe that whatever your calling is, whatever your longing is, your desire, like you have it for a reason. And only you can do it in the way that you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's something that millions of people are trying to do, right? But if you have that, then it's for you to pursue and be victorious in so that you can encourage other people. So you can't give up, because if you give up, and it's different than realizing what you are going for isn't what you want. That happens to people, you know, but I, in my life, the deep things that has not happened, you know, the same things that I've been going for, even though even saying with the politics and the art, it seems like two different things. The mission's the same, you know? So it's like, what, you know, you never give up, and just know that if you have that deep desire, like you're meant to fulfill it, and that the obstacles along the way are just there to test your determination and help you develop the strength, not only to get there, but to stay there and enjoy there. Because I've also seen people get what they want, but because they didn't learn appreciation along the way, they can't enjoy it. You know, so whatever it is. So even though the obstacles sometimes really suck and it can be really painful or feel like they're lasting a really long time, is there something in there for you if you don't give up?
Wow.
Like it isn't saying you can't.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you so much. So that kind of wraps it up for me. I just would love to know, for everyone that's listening and watching, where can they follow you on social media, or do you have a website that they can go visit to see what creative projects you're up to?
I'm Simbi Hall on Instagram. I've been taking a break, but I will go back. I've already been saying I have to go back. And I'm Super Simbi on Twitter.
Love it.
I don't tweet much, but sometimes I
dig it.
It's like, because that's like a whole job,
it's
right?
A whole thing.
You know, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, that's where I am. But definitely on IG, I definitely will check in.
Fantastic. More. Well, thank you so much, Simbi, for allowing us to listen to your story and hear everything that you've shared with us. And I look forward to seeing all the amazing projects and the family that you're going to create and the home that you're going to have, and all the greatness that you're going to bring into this world on your mission. So thank you again for joining us here on the Creative Lotus Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Thank you, Alan. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast, and a huge thank you to Simbi Hall for all of her time and amazing experience and sharing so much of her own personal stories. This week's Buddhist quote of the week is, Buddhism teaches that the heart is like a skilled painter. Both art and our lives are faithful expressions of what is in our hearts, by Daisaku Ikeda. Thank you so much for listening. Please go ahead and check out the description below for links to all of Simbi's social media, as well as if you would like to follow us online. And go ahead and press that subscribe button if you're watching here on YouTube. And I would love it if you give me a big thumbs up on this video. It really helps out. And if you press that little ding bell, it actually will give you notifications when a new episode drops. Until then, I'll say bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Please go ahead and subscribe, rate us, and write a review. And follow me at Alan Zaki on social media. I look forward to having more amazing creative dialogues on the next episode.